This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Maybe you like cooking. Maybe you don't. Either way, the new Blue Apron is for you. Because along with our classic meal kits, we're offering new pre-made and one-pan meals to help you get dinner on the table fast. And now there's no subscription needed, so you can just order and enjoy. Do delicious food your way. Shop 100+ meals at blueapron.com. Get 50% off your first 2 orders with code APRON50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Welcome to the 1905 podcast. Each week, Joe and I bring you our unfiltered takes on the highs, the lows, and everything in between, following the Blues from Gate 13 of the Matthew Hyde stand. Let's hit the notes. Wow. The final whistle literally just playing Newcastle 2, Chelsea 2. Where to start with that? Do you know where I'm going to start? And it's easy not to talk about this sometimes because it's a Chelsea podcast. We are, of course, blue first and, we want to win every game we play, of course. But what a game that was. What a game of football. It was, from minute 1 to minute 96, you just couldn't take your eyes off it, could you? Just a brilliant game of football. I mean, an advert for the Premier League, etc., etc. I just really enjoyed that. Just really enjoyed watching it. I don't know about the defending on both sides at times, but just the way that both teams went to win the game. And I messaged our WhatsApp group with about 5 minutes to go saying this is never finishing 2-2 because it just felt like every time both teams went forward, they looked like scoring. And you could have, it's the opposite of one of those games, isn't it? You say you could play all night and not score. I think if there was another half an hour, it could have finished 4-4. It was that sort of game. Just a brilliant football match. First and foremost, game of 2 halves, obviously. I mean, do you start with how bad we were in the first half or how good we were in the second half? It's Christmas, so I'm going to start with the positives. Second half, we came out exactly what you kind of wished for on the front foot. A moment of genius from the captain, Reece James, who was just superb once again, wasn't he? At times, you just thought, what a player he is. I think he was quite unlucky not to get the man of the match on the TV. Just, when he plays like that, he's such a captain. It's like a real leadership performance. He kind of leads by example, doesn't he? It was a brilliant goal. And Chelsea just kept putting the foot down. You felt like the goal could come any time we went forward. We were so dangerous, the 2 wide men. I think Garnacho, again, I do really like him, and I think he frustrated his teammates a bit today because of his final shot. It was normally the shot wasn't there, and a couple that he blazed over that he should have done better with. But you know what? When you have a player who's getting that many good chances and getting into the position that many times, it's a very good weapon to have. And I think between him and Neto, he's going to have days when he's going to just score goals for fun. I really think that. And it wasn't his day today, but he was a constant menace. The second goal, of course, came from Joao Pedro, who I've defended a bit on the podcast in the last couple of weeks, saying that I just think he has quality. And in that moment there, you saw it. Obviously, big pump down the pitch had been a decent ball, if you want, from Big Bob in goal. And it just was all about him. It was, I think, Roland Savnard-Groove, it was almost Drogba-esque, wasn't it? The way he spun him. But then the finish to slow himself down and just put it through his legs. It was brilliant, absolutely superb. And actually, from that point, if I'm being really greedy, I'm almost disappointed we didn't win it. But I think that's unfair. I think on the balance of the game, a draw is probably about the right result. And let's be fair, a 2-0 at half time, we would have absolutely snapped your hand off for it. And probably before the game, I'd have taken a draw. Chelsea were a bit lucky, I think, with the VAR call on the penalty. At 2-1, it would have been It was a bit reckless from Chalobah, and I don't think that we would have had too much to complain about if that had been given. I think a couple of the other calls that they had, like the Reece James one at the end, I think would have been ridiculously harsh if he'd gone off for that. But that one on Chalobah, I've watched it and I was like, oh, I think most Chelsea fans were probably thinking the same as like, oh no, we know where this is going. But we got lucky with that one and came through with what is, let's face it, a really good point away from home at a ground that we have struggled at so much. And it's just nice not to go into Christmas with a defeat, which it certainly felt like it would be at half time. Let's talk about that first half then. What's disappointing, and what was so disappointing for me, is that none of it was a surprise. You kind of look at it and go, come on, like this group has got to learn and grow from these experiences. We've been to Newcastle twice last season. You know what you're going to get. They're going to be on the front foot. They're going to be aggressive. The atmosphere is going to be up. You just got to try and calm it down and start the game well, much like against Leeds a few weeks ago. And we were just, it was so sloppy. We gave them gifts. The first goal was an absolute gift. Wes Fofana just robbed in the middle of the pitch where you're going, oh no, why have you done that? And then obviously just a disaster at the back. I mean, Trev off balance, didn't clear it, and it just, you're watching it and I was so frustrated because you thought, oh, that is the last thing you needed. Newcastle off the back of a really bad result against Sunderland in the league last week. If you start well here, the fans could go the other way, but we gave them that. They're up. And then the second goal was almost as bad in a different way. Just so sloppy, defending the free kick. And a tight offside call, which again went the right way for them. I thought what was really strange, and I have mentioned this before, is the fact that Chelsea was so good against Arsenal on set pieces, being really smart, putting players forward so that basically the box wasn't packed full of men and with Sanchez could come and claim the ball. Against Newcastle today, they looked really dangerous every single time they got a corner and a free kick. Your heart was in your mouth. And Chelsea didn't, it was almost back to completely forgotten that we'd done that great tactic. And there we are, inviting pressure, an absolutely packed penalty box, made it really difficult for the defenders, really difficult for Rob Sanchez. I just thought it was really strange. I'd love to know the rationale for why we're not making that a more regular tactic against other teams, because we know how dangerous so many teams in the Premier League are now from set pieces. It just feels really strange that we'll sort of pick and choose when we take that approach. I'd love to understand the reasons for it, but at the moment watching it, I can't. And I'm sort of shouting at the TV, just saying, like, clear the box, like, get them out of there. Luckily, we didn't, apart from that free kick, we managed to get through them, but it was, your heart was in your mouth every single time, wasn't it, that we were doing it? I'm going to finish it there. As you can hear, my heart is still racing, to be honest. I really was just, a sense of almost both disappointment and relief, if that makes sense, when the final whistle went. But it was kind of like whoever was in the attack, you thought, oh God. And as the ball was pumped forward and he blew the final whistle, I was kind of like, oh yeah, okay, I'll take that. I'll take the point. But I'll finish there, hand over to Joe, and try and get my heart rate back down to a normal level.
Well, I've got to be honest. I can only imagine what that halftime team talk sounded like today from Enzo Maresca. Probably one of his most important halftime team talks he's ever given. Let's be frank. Chelsea looked absolutely abject. When you throw other games on top of this first half performance today, you start to see a pattern here. And this is happening all too often. And quite frankly, it was becoming, even for me, I'm thinking, this could easily go and be 4-0 the way we were playing. I mean, I've never seen, but the way that Chelsea's two centre-halves were getting absolutely opened up like a tin of beans every time Anthony Gordon got the ball was scary. I mean, he wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary. He was shifting the ball half a yard and putting it into a dangerous area, which I don't think enough players do, quite frankly. I know a lot of the Chelsea wingers tend to shuffle down the wing a little bit and they turn around and they pass it backwards, a bit like Jeremy Gittins. Anthony Gordon is the epitome of just shift it half a yard, get it in the box and see what happens. Make something happen. Make Voltemada get in there and do something, cause some problems. And his movement creates movement for somebody else. And quite frankly, yeah, we were all over the place. I didn't speak to Chris during the game really today. I think we watched it from two different places, and I think I wanted to give the game time to settle. At 1-0, I was thinking, not fearing the worst, because you think there's loads of time. And after 4 minutes, there's loads of time to get back into this. Let's see a real kind of upturn in performance, but it just never came. Obviously, Cole Palmer has that lovely, delicate chip, almost Cantona-esque for our older viewers listening. That lovely, deft little chip before Newcastle scored. But really, other than that, we weren't in the game in the first half. And like I say, I was very concerned. I think when, obviously, Rob Sanchez makes that wonderful save from the cross that led to the first goal, you just got to look at the marking after that and the panic it caused. Trev Chalobah and Fofana were absolutely all over the place today. And we've given Badiashile and Tosin a right rough ride in the last few weeks. You have to call it out when you see it, and they weren't good today. And when you're looking for like a captain's reaction, I thought Reece was way off it. His first half performance was really poor. Even Caicedo, we just could not get a foothold in the game whatsoever. And you're thinking to yourself, what is going to happen? Before you know it, another cross into the box, another, load of confusion, and it's 2-0. And you're thinking, bloody hell, what's going on here? And then they do it again a bit later, and they should have scored again. And you're thinking, we could be 3 down, 4 down here in the first half. I'm a penny for Maresca's thoughts at that point, because had they gone in 3-0 down, I don't think there's any way back, particularly with that Walker's crowd. At least with 2-0, you feel like you've got a fighting chance, maybe. It's still a massive uphill task away in Newcastle, but obviously Reece getting us back into the game in the second half, that wonderful free kick, and it was a lovely goal. It did change the flow of the game, and suddenly it was Chelsea in the ascendancy. And of course we get our equaliser, which was very well deserved, I think, actually. And that is a beautiful goal. I gave Joao Pedro a little bit of grief a couple of weeks ago and said he needs to do more. That was a beautiful goal. A longer pass up to him, and the way he controls that with his head, and basically sends the defender for a milkshake, and then gets it back down on the deck and dribbles forward and coolly finishes under Ramsdale was fantastic. And yeah, fair play to Joao Pedro, because it wasn't an easy goal. He made it look very, very easy, and it got us back into the game. But, we had sort of half chances from there on in, but you felt as though the big chances were still falling to Newcastle. And you kind of expect that, being the home team and being cheered on by, 60,000 people. But, we rode our luck to the end, and we walk away from St James's Park with a point. What do I think about the point? I think you have to say, you have to take it. You're 2-0 down at St James's Park away from home. A draw there has to be a good result, But I would like to be positive. I want my team to go to places and start winning and turning these draws into wins. But when I think about it afterwards, I thought, well, they showed fighting spirit. They got themselves back into the game. They showed character. They didn't just fold. Because I think that Chelsea team probably folds and loses 3 or 4-0 last season. Maybe even more if they get unlucky. But I think I'm okay with it. It keeps us fourth. It keeps us in that sort of area of the league table that we want to be sticking around. If we can get some players back to some form, I don't think Cole Palmer's anywhere near fit enough at the moment. I think Joao Pedro's been overplayed to some degree. If we can get him back to some kind of form, Liam Delap after Christmas. I know he hasn't scored a lot of goals, but you have to kind of say these are our marquee players. Just get some more consistency within the group. I feel like we've lost the consistency. It's all a bit wham bam, thank you now at the moment. And yeah, it's like a crowd surfer. It's like flailing arms and legs everywhere. We don't feel like we're comfortable in matches. we seem to have lost that. I thought for a little period we seemed to have calmed down, and we definitely had that feeling of we're in control of this. But it's the Premier League. You always get these mad results and you get these mad performances. But I think Chris is quite right. You know, the game itself was good. It was a good match to watch as a neutral. You'd have seen that and gone, yeah, it's a bloody good advert for the Premier League. Not like the absolute shitfest that Brighton and Sunderland have put together today. The 0-0 draw was absolutely garbage. So yes, on the face of it, I think I'm more than happy with the point. I just want to turn my attention briefly now to Maresca's post-match comments. He has mentioned experience again. He has mentioned about having a couple of players with experience and how invaluable their expertise is. He says about winning and losing games, but what it means when an older player who's been around the leagues or the world, as it were, what their input and what their say-so means to a team. You wouldn't believe it. It's like, what I've been saying for the last 18 months actually makes some fucking sense. So the battle with the sporting directors and the owners, whoever it might be with, this is certainly what it's all about. He clearly feels like, I think, that he's been kind of left hung out to dry. And if Chelsea lose matches, it's because he's not good enough. We've got you this brilliant squad, so go and do something with it. Opposed to, yes, I have some good players and some brilliant players in my side, but they're all inexperienced. I need some experience within the group to help the youngsters win. And that is definitely the power struggle. That is what you can see now. He wouldn't have said those things otherwise. So I think he wants some help. Now, is he going to get that help in January? I'm not too sure. I really don't know. They might look at it and say, we can't spend because we've done a load of money, and you know, we know Chelsea's financial state at the moment is not that they haven't got the money, but they have to work within these financial fair play rules across Europe and the Premier League. So they may not be able to do anything in January. But even if you knew perhaps there was a couple of experienced players coming in the summer, would that persuade him to kind of go, okay, you're listening to me? Who's going to win this power struggle? Usually it's only one person, and it's either the owners or the sporting directors. They've won those battles in the past. But like Chris said the other day, Maresca has got these supporters now chanting his name. He has got them sort of singing from his hymn sheet and not the club's. And I don't think Chelsea really want to sack another manager, if I'm being brutally honest. I'd like to see them work through some differences. I don't think that's a bad thing if the club can, or the club and the manager, if they can come together and say, everything isn't great, you know, let's work together and let's just not throw our toys out the pram every single time there's a problem. So I think that Maresca is showing his hand. He's done it again tonight, like I say. He definitely wants some experience in this side. And like I say, we shall see. I don't see Chelsea doing a lot in January. That's my personal opinion, unless they can get some players in for the summer, maybe. But who knows? There could be a free transfer or someone knocking around who's willing to move and help us in this sort of situation that we're in. Because I think we're in that pocket of teams where we need to kind of push for third and fourth and stay there and pull away from the rest of the pack. But like we keep saying, every time we draw or lose a match, we just get sucked back in again. That's why we need to win 3 or 4 games in a row just to relieve the pressure somewhat. So busy January coming up as well. 9 fixtures in January for Chelsea. So there's no rest for the wicked. And I just hope that within this group, they can at least continue to show the fight and determination that they did today. Because was the performance perfect in the first half? Absolutely not. It was damn right dismal. However, when the chips are down, what do you want to see from your team? You want to see fight, passion, aggression, and ultimately a massive response. And I think at least Chelsea Football Club today can say to themselves, yes, do you know what? We might have been poor. We might have had a few mistakes in us. We might have not defended as we would have liked to have done. But come the end of the game, we didn't lose. They are a kind of a rival for that position, for that 4th position. I think come the end, Newcastle will be there or thereabouts. So it's not the worst point in the world. So sort of what we've done today to Chelsea. terrible in the first half, much better in the second half, and we live to fight another day.
From writer-director Ryan Johnson.
The Holy Grail. A perfectly impossible crime.
Wake Up Dead Man has critics singing its praises.
God help me. Anything else?
It's a deliciously entertaining mystery.
That's nice.
It's certified fresh.
It's a miracle.
Okay, you're freaking me out now.
It's the best Knives Out movie yet.
This case is solvable, right?
Oh, you'll see. It's fun.
Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery starring Daniel Craig. Now playing on Netflix.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana.
Oh, good morning, Sunday morning, and I'm a little bit calmer with my voice note today than I was straight after the final whistle yesterday. And yeah, I've woken up feeling, I think, pretty upbeat actually overall about the result and certainly the second half performance. It's the classic cliche, isn't it, that when you draw but you've come back from 2-0 down, it does feel closer to a win than it does a defeat. And I'm sure Newcastle fans today are feeling kind of the opposite. I wanted to cover three things really in the note today. The part one was just a few little kind of tidbits and things that I spotted from the game yesterday that I thought were worth mentioning. First one is Rob Sanchez, who I think quite rightly is being lauded for his performances this season. And again, I thought yesterday he was excellent. But the one thing I wanted to really pick out is something that I've really been noticing this season, and we've not really talked about a huge amount on the pod, which is just how good his distribution has been, particularly from fast counter-attacks. And it's obviously one of Chelsea's biggest threats, really, is on the break. We've always said that we are, I think, pretty electric when we've got that space in behind. And I think it really is Sanchez's biggest strength for us, is claiming those balls, which he does. He's really one of the best in the league. Let's give him his due when it comes to claiming crosses. But how quick he is when he's claimed that ball to get it out. Often it's those quick throws that he does. And he does those kind of interesting, like two-handed sort of push-out throws to a player on the break, normally like a Neto or Garnacho, which I think he's really, really good at. If you watch it, he does it, 3 or 4 times a game. He'll kind of claim a ball and look really quickly. And I noticed it when Jorgensen was in goal. We had the same sort of opportunities, and he just doesn't have either the mindset or the distribution to quite do it just as well. And I think it's a real strength of Sanchez's. And obviously when he has to go long, as we saw with the second goal, he's got so much better at that. And his long distribution, which was such a big part of us winning that Club World Cup final against PSG in the summer, has become a bit of a weapon, actually. So I wanted to call that out because I think it was a massive, massive strength. Second thing I wanted to shout out was that Reece James tackle. With 10 minutes or so to go on Harvey Barnes. It was absolutely unreal, wasn't it? When you watch it back, I watched the highlights again last night, and it was even better than I remembered watching the game live. He's come from absolutely nowhere, steamed through Barnes, got the ball, and it was the definition of a goal-saving tackle. Absolutely brilliant. As Joe said, he wasn't necessarily at his best, Reece, in the first half, but that second half, he did everything that you want from a captain, and maybe a little reminder as well for us of we've got a bit used to seeing him in centre midfield in recent weeks, and a reminder that he's probably the best right back in the world as well. He's just, when you had him back there, you think, he's so good. So yeah, that was absolutely unreal. And the other thing I wanted to mention about the game was that chance that they had for 3-0 in the first half, where how the foul wasn't given on Cole Palmer was absolutely outrageous. And I think it was one of those where, had they scored the volley at the back post, which would have been his hat-trick, the big man. There's a great photo of him with Peter Crouch today. By the way, it's very, very good. He met Peter Crouch for the first time after the game. But because it had gone on the game so long, I'm not even sure that VAR would have called it back. It was the classic, the game's gone on for too long, and it would have been game over 3-0. And like Joe said, I don't think we would have had it in us to get back in at that point. But it was terrible for the referee not to see it. But thankfully for us, he missed, and we obviously came back as we did. The second thing that I wanted to talk about was obviously the experience, a thing that Maresca talks about after the game. As Joe said, it's not rocket science. We've been talking about it for so long. Very interesting that he's come out and said it, because obviously there's been lots of talk about Maresca in the last week, about the comments linked to Man City, all these kind of things. And interesting that he's taken this sort of moment in time to come out and say, yeah, experience would really be helpful. And you have to say, all doesn't seem particularly right behind the scenes and necessarily super happy. I don't think there's a Chelsea fan out there that wouldn't like to see Chelsea bring in some experience. John Terry this week did a video when Thiago Silva was available. He's since gone to Porto, but he was available on a free transfer. And John Terry came out and said he'd love to see him back at Chelsea in a kind of playing capacity, but he compared it to JT himself in that Conte season where he didn't really play, but he was around the first team, always in the first team squad, there to give a bit of advice and at times to help close out a game, which, let's be honest, you'd feel a lot more confident Thiago Silva coming on the pitch than you would Tosin. But it wasn't to be in that respect. But I just wonder if there is a signing like that out there that Chelsea could make just to bring in a bit of experience, and whether they will. What I think really see with the lack of experience at the moment in Chelsea, and it's easy to throw various cliches there, but I think the things that are obvious to all of us is a real severe lack of discipline. Again, Chelsea picked up, a load of cards yesterday. It was like Christmas card season being given out, the number of yellow cards that we got. We've seen it time and time again. A lot of them are for ill discipline of some kind, arguing to the referee and all these kind of things. And it is even Maresca himself not leading by example. I think he's got a touchline ban, again, for him getting another booking. I think you see it across the team, and where it really manifests itself is this sort of Jekyll and Hyde type Chelsea that we see from week to week, and even within game, where we can go from like the sublime to the ridiculous, can't we, within the same game. I mean, no better example than that yesterday. But we're almost to a man, we're inconsistent, and you don't know what you're going to get from game to game, half to half. The one thing that does seem consistent at the moment, which is a really frustrating one, is that we start games badly. And yesterday was case in point. But I've said it on the pod before, even games that we've won this season, we've tended to come out very, very slowly and have been lucky not to be behind. Even when we've then gone ahead, it's been, thanks to missed chances and maybe a sloppiness from the opposition. So Chelsea have got to sort that out. I don't know the answer. I don't know what it is, but something's not right in that respect, and Chelsea have got to fix it. And the final thing from me before Christmas is my Christmas wish for Chelsea, and what would be the gift that I would ask for. And I don't think Chelsea will go and buy a 30-year-old or 33-year-old Thiago Silva like we used to. I just don't think it will happen. But Mark Gay has had the best part of 6 seasons now playing regularly at Crystal Palace. He, as we know, is available on a free at the end of the season. There might be a deal to be done in January for a reduced price. I've said on the pod so many times, he just makes so much sense to me as a Chelsea signing. I think he'd be a different type of experience. He is a leader. I think Chelsea should go out, put Tosin on the transfer market. You get effectively a pure profit deal because we got Tosin on a free. And I think the money you get back, you go and spend on Mark Gay, and you put him in that rotation with Fofana and Chalobah. And I think we see a significant upgrade in the way that Chelsea play. And it would be my simple Christmas wish for Chelsea Football Club in January to go and make that deal happen. Do I think it will? I don't know. I don't think it's impossible. I think it's the sort of signing that would make a lot of sense with Chelsea if they could persuade him, which I think they could. Yeah, I can ask for that one. That's on my list. And if you want me to give you a little Christmas tip wish, it's maybe late to put it on your Christmas list now, but one to buy on Boxing Day if you don't get it on Christmas Day is the new Jekyll autobiography. I've just started it. I'm probably about 2 or 3 chapters in, and honestly, I couldn't recommend it more. If you're a Chelsea fan who remembers that kind of first Mourinho era in the mid-early 2000s, and you want to kind of go back in time and relive it through Joe Cole, it is brilliant. And actually, he has such an interesting life story as well, accompanying kind of how he broke through in football. He was obviously one of the most highest rated kids that we've had in England, really. He was billed that high when he was a 14 and 15-year-old. It's a really fascinating story. And I have to say, I'm very much looking forward to sitting down with it every time I've got to read. It's a real page turner. So that's my little Christmas tip to you Chelsea fans out there. Thoroughly recommended. This is not an ad, quite paid for by Joe Cole. But if you are listening, Joe, we'd love to get you on the show. But I'll hand over to Joe. Final word for me is just to say Merry Christmas to all of you Chelsea fans out there. Thanks for all your support for the show. And yeah, we will be back after the Aston Villa game on the 27th to reflect on that one. Me and Joe are watching it together, which I'm very much looking forward to. But I'll hand over to Joe for the final word of this episode.
It was a strange old week as a Chelsea fan, wasn't it? The game against Newcastle, the game against Cardiff were just completely overshadowed by what Maresca said. And maybe that's what he wanted. You know, managers of the past, they use themselves to deflect things from individual performances. You know, did anyone really speak about Chelsea losing to Atalanta? Not really. The comments were basically directed in a way that made us all think that there was a bigger problem at the club under the scenes. Maybe there is, we don't really know yet, but by saying what he did, it was only ever going to garner one reaction, and that was, what's going on, Enzo? You know, are there problems between you and the fans? Is there problems between you and the players? Or perhaps the ownership and the sporting directors? And even now, we don't really know what his issue is. He's just basically come out and said he's had a great week and, you know, no problems this week or whatever. And I think even the Chelsea hierarchy are going, what's he going on about? I think they're completely bemused by these comments. And as a fan base, we'll probably never really know the true depth of meaning, what he was going on about. But he has certainly brought on an unwanted level of pressure to his shoulders where, quite frankly, I didn't think there was any. Now, it sort of leads me on to kind of go, how do I feel about Enzo Maresca? There have been managers in the past of Chelsea where, you know, for example, when Ruud Gullit was made player manager of Chelsea, and some of you won't remember this, I thought I could go to school the next day. It was like I felt absolutely crushed, you know. And then you go on a bit further, a bit later in your life, and you sort of, the Mourinho era, he gets sacked again, felt dreadful. You know, managers like Ancelotti and Tuchel, when they left, felt awful. And then there's managers that get the sack like Scolari and Villas-Boas, and you kind of go, I'm not too bothered. Yeah, I can see past this. I don't think it was going quite the way I would have liked it to have done. Now, Maresca weirdly falls into a real niche camp. I think if he was to be sacked tomorrow, which he won't be, by the way, but if he was sacked tomorrow, I don't think I would lose sleep over it. I don't feel great saying that, but equally, if he stays on and ends up having a fantastic career with Chelsea, then fair play to the guy. And I don't feel like I want him gone either way, because he's not very warm in the press. And then there's moments where you feel like he's had a dig at the fans unnecessarily. And that kind of makes your hair stand up on end and go, oh, well, I don't know if I really like you that much. But again, there are occasions where he plays some really good games, some fantastic football, like the Club World Cup against PSG, like against Barcelona very recently. There have been other games, of course. He's won a Europa Conference League, which, okay, he had to win it, and he did. So, you know, fair play. And he's won a Club World Cup. Now, other than that, I don't know if I'm so bought into him that if he was to leave, I would, I'd sit around and cry about it. He's a really odd guy. I, as a person, want the club to stay with the manager for a period of time and see how it goes, because I think Chelsea fans have always had this feeling of, get one out, get a new one in, and everything changes overnight. I think under Roman that probably worked because of the way the model was. We were able to go out and buy anyone we wanted for pretty much however much money we wanted. But this era of Chelsea is more a case of, let's be a little bit more sustainable. Let's try and build a new stadium. Let's try and keep a winning team going. Let's try and build some young players up into superstars. Let's not go and buy the superstar first. And so what does Enzo Maresca really want? When he got the job, he would have been told about all of this. None of this will be a shock to him. But you do wonder, is he thinking, this team is actually very good, but with a couple of real quality, people keep saying experience, they haven't got to be 30, they could be 25, With real quality additions, we could take this team to the next level really, really quickly. And you might be looking at the Arsenal match the other day and thinking, we should have beaten them. We might have looked at Newcastle yesterday and thought, we should have beat them. And you just wonder, is he getting a bit frustrated? Is he getting a little bit like, time is wonderful, but how much time am I actually going to get? Chelsea managers of the past, and even under Bowley and Egbali, have been, very short brains, 2-3 years maximum. And sometimes I don't even get that. It could be 6 months or a year and you're out the door. So I hope that Enzo can find a way of getting back into the good books with the owners and the sporting directors. But I do worry and I do wonder if now he's at that stage where he's thinking, do you know what? I haven't got 5 years of this. I don't want to keep babysitting all these players, and trying to keep, basically saying the same thing year on year. Because if Chelsea keep bringing in more 18 and 19-year-olds, it's great to work with them because they're hungry, they want to listen. But equally, you don't want 22 of them. That's the difference. I've said it before as well. I think you've got to remember there are players like Cole Palmer who are certainly going to be going, look, this is all great and wonderful and stuff, but I'm here to challenge for the top trophies. I don't want to be told at the start of the season, 4th is okay. Like, he is a winner. He wants to come away with the biggest trophies. He'll see his mates at Man City, Foden and Haaland and all that, going, fancy a bit of that myself. Now, I'm not saying Palmer's going to leave, but you do kind of go, what road are we on? What do we really want? Are we going to become a club that kind of puts profit before trophies? Or are we going to be a club that actually starts to get a little bit serious? Because I think Arsenal went through a period of this for a long, long time where they kept bringing in kind of almost developmental pieces. They'll be good in a couple of years and stuff. Then all of a sudden they started getting people like Declan Rice. Now we're going to go and get him. Okay, they got Gyökeres. They bought Kai Havertz. Now, whatever you think of Kai Havertz is irrelevant because to them, he was a £65 million signing to score, some goals, be an assist maker, be a really good difference maker in their team. And there's many, many, many more players that you can think of. David Raya, and, the list goes on and on and on. And you wonder if Enzo's looking at their team and thinking, I think we could beat you. I think you're not that great. But yet this team is being put together in such a way that we're going to find it difficult to break through that glass ceiling a little bit. And again, I go back to Enzo. I don't want to see the guy sacked. I don't want to see him walk out the door. Not just yet, anyway. Inevitably, these managers will always get sacked or moved on because that's Chelsea Football Club. We never see anybody more than about 3 years. And ultimately, you can only really judge them on their previous clubs. Obviously, at Leicester, as we know, he obviously complained in the press conferences about the fans and, I will if I want to. If you don't want me here, I'll leave and all that sort of stuff. And you kind of go, well, is that your mentality? When it gets a little bit rough, you tend to want to run away? Or are you looking at something longer term, bigger picture? Because Chelsea will give you the tools, I think, to go and create a fantastic team eventually. But I suppose it's just how long you want to wait. And in that time, I just don't want to see Chelsea lose a game of football. Let's just say they lose to Aston Villa, which I sincerely hope they don't, by the way. But they lose to Aston Villa, and then there's more media stuff, and it's all kind of blown out of proportion that Chelsea's season's, crumbling around their ears, when really it's not. They're only ever one win away from the top 3 or 4 positions, currently at the moment, as it stands. And frankly, I don't want to see complete and utter destruction and self-destruct all over again, because who does come in as Chelsea manager if Maresca was, to leave at the end of the season, or maybe, he has a bad run of results and the club say, no, we're not doing this anymore. You complained about us enough. See you later. And he gets pushed out. You end up kind of going down that barrel of, is it going to be Liam Rosenior from Strasbourg, or is it going to be another sort of upcoming manager like Enzo Maresca, who fancies a challenge and looks at the Chelsea job and says, that's an enormous payday there for me. Go and win a few matches and, I might go and get another job. And almost like using Chelsea as like a stepping stone to get another job. And you think, that can't be right. Enzo Maresca being linked to the Man City job straight away after complaining about Chelsea was like, it was fucking madness. You're going, he hasn't really achieved anything. Why on earth Man City would want him over some of the guys that are out there would be beyond me. But Maresca does play some really good football at times, but he does frustrate the living daylights out of me. And I think to myself, the club will definitely soldier on without you. You're not the be-all and end-all of this football club. But I do think sometimes he thinks he's reinvented the wheel. He'll play a particular game of formation and team, and they'll win. And you'll go, oh, that was good. It's like he likes to smell of his own farts. And as the saying goes, one swallow doesn't make a summer. And in Chelsea's case, one win doesn't make an entire season. And I think I just want to see him be able to put some real consistency together with this side. And even if it means losing your job over it, right? Just say to the medical department, just say to the sporting directors, this is the team I am picking. Okay, I'm going to pick the same 15 or 16 players now for the next 10 games. Whatever happens, I'm going to play them, bar an injury. And then afterwards go, right, these are the results I got. And hopefully you're going to see a lot of wins in those corners. And kind of show them all this chopping and changing and this in and out nonsense is rubbish. Because if you're going to get the sack, or you think you're going to get the sack, you might as well go down fighting, right? I wouldn't want to go down with a whimper. And I think I'd have so much more respect for him, because I wouldn't want Stanley and Stuart on the mobile phone saying to him, tomorrow you got to play Buddy Shield, or tomorrow you got to play, Toulouse Tosin, or tomorrow you got to play this player. I'd be like, no, I'm playing who I want to play. I'm the manager. I make the decisions, and that's the end of it. And if you don't like it, get somebody else in. And then at least you can go down with your head held high. All this messing around for no reason has cost Chelsea tons of points of late. And I don't care what anybody says, that's the facts. But as I said in my voice note yesterday, I'm well and truly got my head out of the clouds and I'm just start thinking about Chelsea hopefully finishing the top 4, which is a pathetic thing to say, and I hate saying it, but that's about all we can achieve this year, I think, in the league. I don't believe we've got anything else in us. And Man City and Arsenal now is just starting to stretch their legs and pull away from us. If Aston Villa win again today, they will also start to stretch their legs and get away from us. So, in my opinion, be a man, stand on your own 2 feet, pick the players you want to pick, play the players you want to play in the positions you want to play them, and let's see where we go from there. And hopefully, I'll be on this podcast at the end of the season saying, no, I do not want Enzo Maresca to leave. I want him to be my manager. I want him to be here for the next 5 years. He's earned my trust. At the moment, he hasn't earned my trust, even though I think he's done a good job in certain aspects of the team, the squad development and stuff. There are still so many things he gets wrong. And for example, that first half against Newcastle yesterday, absolutely abysmal. Like the way you send your teams out, this lackadaisical approach to games is why we lose and draw so many matches. Be a strong man, be a leader, tell your players in that dressing room, under no circumstances, if you come in and you lose 2-0 because the other team are playing well and you're playing well, that's fair enough. You've been a bit unlucky, but don't come in after a half-baked performance, the warm-up was terrible or whatever, and then just keep repeating yourself by saying, we need a little bit more experience of the team because you've said it like 1,000 times. If you really believe that, keep saying it. Like, just keep dropping it in there. You haven't got to be so direct, but you could just keep every press conference. Just say, yeah, it would be handy to have a player like this or that, or a player with this kind of skill set in the team. Just keep dropping it in there. At the end of the day, what they can do to you, it's going to get rid of you and pay you off. So, and if you feel like you've done nothing wrong, then I say go for it, mate. Because at the moment, if there's bad blood between all of you, then they're only going to win. So you might as well go down, like I say, by having a scrap. Listen, we'll leave it there this week. I hope that Chelsea can get back onto a winning run against Aston Villa on the 27th. Chris and I will be there in person. We're going together this week, which is great. And fingers crossed we can kind of come back with a good upbeat podcast with a few beers in us. We'll maybe try and do something from the ground this week because it's been a little bit difficult of late. But yeah, we're going to try and do something there. We are nearing 100 episodes. We haven't got there quite yet, but we're getting close to it. So that's a fantastic milestone for the pair of us. And when we get there, we'll be very grateful. We're always very grateful to everyone that has tuned in, listened, subscribed, and obviously sent us messages, emails, Instagram notes, etc. Whatever it might be, you've all been fantastic. And Chris and I absolutely love doing this. Like I say, if you can keep sending in your 5-star reviews, keep telling your friends who we are, where we are. And Chris and I will always give you the realest, most honest and normal takes. There's nothing outlandish from us. We always give it the quality and the direction and the tone it deserves. And I think that from our comments from the people that have messaged us, we are really balanced fans. We always have been. We don't try to overreact to things. When we win a game or lose a game, we always come back down to earth the day after or whatever. And I think emotion in football is really important. I think if you lose the emotion in it, it's gone. And I think you'll never get it back. If Chelsea lose a game at the weekend and it's Saturday afternoon, by all means be pissed off. It's what sport is all about, I always say to my wife as a joke, Chelsea's like having another child for me. They can be fantastic 1 minute, they can drive you mad the next minute, but ultimately, you'll be back the very next time they play. You'll be back watching and giving your opinion on everything they do, whether that's down the pub with your mates on a podcast like this, or just simply kind of shouting and screaming at your husband or wife. So we are one of you. We are all the same in that regard. And always remember, every little thing is going to be all right. Cheers, guys.
Those were the Chelsea notes for this week. If you enjoyed the podcast, do us a favour and share it with a fellow Blue. And we'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave us a review wherever you're listening. Wherever you may be, stay carefree, and remember, every little thing's gonna be all right.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.